When it comes to list building for bolt action, it is easy to find yourself in a position either just under, or barely over, your target points limit. And usually one of the first units that is adjusted for these cases is officers and their chosen weapons. Officers' weapons are no longer free in bolt action 3rd edition, and while this aligns them with all the other infantry models in your army, needing to have multiple models for your squad, platoon, or company commanders, depending on their weapon loadout, can be quite annoying. But if you have a plastic kit and some spare magnets, we can solve this issue. So let's start the new year off with a Welcome to Conversion Quickies, the series where we explore one-off kit bashing and conversion projects that need not wait to be included in a long-form video. I hope you're not too sick of magnets yet, since we used about 50 of them in the last video, because today we are going to build an officer with which you can swap out weapon options. As mentioned, this is usually an issue of maximizing your points limit, but also your officer's weapon choices can be based on special rules, like giving your American officers rifles to take advantage of fire and maneuver. I am going to say this project is really only practical for your officers, as your standard infantry models are easily swapped out, and NA extras can be the base of new squads. Extras can also fill out weapons teams, usually regardless of the weapons they are modeled with. So, with all that out of the way, let's jump in. For this project, I decided to use the new Warlord Winter Fallschirmjäger sprue for a couple of reasons. 1. This might be Warlord's nicest plastic infantry, at least as of the making of this video. 2. The winter gear means bulkier models, which makes room for hiding magnets. And 3. German officers can take 4 different weapon options, more than any other nation, so we get the full modular experience. Also, we will be using 2 sizes of magnets for this endeavor, 3mm by 3mm in the body, and 3mm by 1mm in the arms. Let's start with the rifle. Because this arm will be where the first magnet is being placed, I don't need to worry about polarity or exact positioning. However, I did decide to start drilling into the arm on the lower end of the contact point, because the plastic here is thicker than up at the top of the shoulder, and so it can better hide a magnet. I start with a small drill bit to create a pilot hole, and then switch over to a bit that is just slightly bigger than my 3mm magnets. When drilling for placing a magnet, make sure you take it slow and test fit your magnet often, and be careful not to drill through to the other side of the arm. Once the magnet was flush with the contact point, I super glued it into place. Now that we do have a magnet locked into the arm, we will need to be precise attaching it to the body to avoid gaps and funky positioning. I added a little blob of paint to a toothpick, applied it to the magnet, and held the arm into place on the body, which gave me a good target for where to place the next magnet. Once again, I started out with my small drill bit, then the larger, to get my positioning just right. To make sure the arm sat against the body to my liking, I attached the 3x1mm magnet to the arm, and added a little super glue, then press it into place on the body. Now the key here is to give the super glue plenty of time to dry. I myself have very little patience, and way too many times have tried to remove magnetized parts before they are ready, causing me to need to start the whole gluing process over again. Very frustrating, trust me. I repeated the same steps on the right side of the model. I chose this arm that's in a commandery action pose, and drilled out the contact point, glued a 3x1mm magnet into the cavity, marked the positioning on the body, drilled another hole, added super glue, place the arm in position, and let the super glue fully cure. Now, these magnets are going to be under a lot of stress when removing arms, and the cavity is slightly bigger than the magnets themselves, so I let some thin super glue trickle down into the gap and wiped away the excess. Oh, and by the way, super glue on the fingers isn't a scary ordeal. You just tap your fingers together and the super glue becomes inert. So, we've got one set of arms ready, but now the process will change slightly for the subsequent weapons. Since we have our body magnets in place, positioning and polarity are going to really matter. To begin on the SMG arm, I attached a 3x1mm magnet to the body, and again used paint to mark out where on the arm I will need to drill. I then drilled out a cavity as before, but left the magnets on the body attached, so I could dry fit the arm to make sure I could get it exactly where I wanted it. When it was ready, I applied a little bit of super glue, pressed the arm into position, and let it sit for an agonizing amount of time to let it solidify. As I mentioned before, I'm not a very patient person. Or in other words, I'm a measure once, cut 18 times kind of guy. So I removed a bit more plastic from the arm than I actually needed. In this case, I decided to fill this space with sprue goo. And if you're curious, sprue goo is just plastic cement that has had some extra plastic bits dissolved in it to create a thick mixture. Sprue goo is great for filling gaps, and any excess can be cleaned up with regular plastic cement. So, using all these processes, I applied the same changes to the rest of the weapons and corresponding arms, and I strengthened the magnets with a combination of super glue and sprue goo. I also added this shovel wielding appendage, but unfortunately, combat shovels are not an upgrade in bolt action, so I replaced the trenching tool with a pistol. Once all this was complete, and after I made sure to glue on a suitable officer's head, I could attach the model to the base, with some tactical bricks of course. All that was left to do was paint the model, plus all the extra arms, and... And just like that, you've got a fully modular officer, with upwards of 4 action poses. The combination of magnet sizes is plenty strong to keep the parts attached. You won't be bumping them off while the model is on the table, I promise. I've been getting a fair number of comments on the historical accuracy, or I guess inaccuracies, of my models, so to address this very fair criticism, I made sure to paint the arm bone and the surrounding fleshy bits on the magnets, which would be historically accurate for most officers to have in the 1940s. Thanks for following along on this project, and if you have any ideas for future conversion quickie projects, make sure to comment them below. Also, if you enjoy these videos and want to see me tackle more unique bolt action topics, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really is a huge help. But that's it for me, and we'll see you next time.